Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ColorByFeliks podcast. Today we have Kris Ancog visiting us today. And I'm so happy that you are here today because I love your art and I'm excited to hear your process and your art journey and get to know you. Thank you, Kris, for being here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure, and I'm really excited to share my story as well.
Cool. I said visiting. You're talking to us from Australia, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm currently based in Sydney,
Oh,
and
cool.
yeah, it's sunny here, even though it's winter, which is good.
Nice. Yeah, we're in Puerto Rico. It's sunny here too. So that's why we moved here. Really quick, everyone listening, do us a big favor and please share this episode. Go check out Kriss while you're listening. Kriss, could you give us your Instagram handle?
Yes, it's at Kris Ancog. So it's maybe just my first name and my surname.
Okay,
And
perfect.
yeah, I also have a
Awesome.
YouTube channel too.
Oh yeah, shout that one out too. Let's get it
Yeah,
out.
so search my name. It's Kris Ancog, and
Okay.
yeah, I share my story there too.
Nice.
Guys, you should check it out because his work is very incredible and it's cool because your work has it's like it has like elements of realistic, but also a lot of abstract in it with the way you use your color. And I love how smooth and the way you blend the colors together and just your nightscapes, they just look incredible. And so, we just want to get to know you and how you started with your art, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm originally from the Philippines, and I'm a full-time artist now based in Sydney. So that was in 2008. I migrated to New Zealand actually and lived there for a long time, and
Wow.
migrated as a registered nurse. And
Oh, cool.
I was trained as a nurse and worked as a professional nurse for around 15 years. But while I was still in New Zealand, I was working full time and it felt like there was something missing in my life. And I realized that it's really about pursuing something creative that gave me joy. And so I started painting. And
Cool.
after a few years, I felt like I needed to learn more. So I did a 2-year qualification in one of the art schools in Wellington in New Zealand. And by the time I graduated, I started doing art shows and I've been doing art fairs for many years now. I moved here in Australia around 3 years ago. And after about 2 years, I opened my gallery and became a full-time artist. And, as an artist, it's really about creating meaningful connections. That's really the foundation of my art
Oh, I
practice.
love that.
Whether it is through abstract paintings or the landscapes and the night scenes with the auroras, it's really about the emotion of the piece that I wanted to paint. And that's something that a lot of my collectors would say, like, oh, there's really something in your artwork. And I said, yeah, I start with an emotion and take it from there. And I love to paint those realities of being human. As a nurse, I've witnessed a lot of tragedies and miracles. And I'm always fascinated about how do we translate these emotions and these beautiful stories into the canvas. And so although I paint the landscapes, it's the emotion of the landscape that I wanted to create. Like, if you probably see, I also paint a lot of sunsets and some not nighttime illuminated landscapes, mainly because these scenes bring me into a state of meditation. And in that state, it reminds me of my dreams. It reminds me of the things that are important in my life. And I invite my viewers to do the same.
I love that.
Wow. There's so much there to jump in and ask a lot of questions. But so I guess my question to you is, so you were a nurse, and when did you transition? And at what point did you transition? And
Yeah.
when you started painting, did you see like a lot of great feedback, and then it made you want to like, okay, I found my passion. I want to do this full time. And are you still doing nursing? So, or are you just mainly focused on art?
So many questions.
So what I did was, when I was still, it was self-taught for, I was doing my art, it was self-taught, and my goal was really to get into one of the big art fairs in New Zealand, which is the New Zealand Art Show. And at that time I was working full-time. I knew that my art wasn't really ready yet to I wasn't ready to bring it to the galleries and to do a solo shows and things like that. And so it was a very slow transition to get from point of doing my first painting to opening my gallery. That's like a 12-year journey.
Wow,
It took me over a decade to get to become full-time. But in saying that one, I really enjoyed my nursing career as well. I did a lot of things as a nurse. I still remember working as a nurse in the intensive care. I'd be doing 12-hour shifts, and after that, I'll be painting. After my shift, I'll be painting in my days off. And then, and I'll, when it's showtime, when I'm doing the art fairs, I'll book the annual leave and I'll be off for a week. I'll do the shows and I'll get back to doing nursing again. And
wow, that's cool.
and that's been my life for around 10 years.
Wow.
By the time I moved to Australia, I was still nursing for around 2.5 years. But I would slowly drop my hours because it was getting to the stage wherein I was doing a lot more work. And I got represented by a big gallery in Sydney as well. And it was, by the time I've seen the revenue is actually sufficient for me to be financially stable, then I slowly transitioned to be full-time. By the time I opened a gallery, that was when there was just so much work. I was doing one shift a week and it was still getting in the way. And so I knew at that time that it was time to let go of nursing, but I still got my registration, and I can still work as a nurse anytime when I wanted to. But for now, my focus is my art business and my art career. And and I equally love both professions. I think nursing has complemented my art journey in a way that I think the nursing profession has shaped me to be the artist that I am right now, where I do have, I have that understanding of the
People.
of being vulnerable. So I'm actually doing a series right now called Vulnerability, and I have seen that different forms and state of vulnerability in my patients, and also as a healthcare professional, especially during the pandemic. And it's amazing how it actually flows into the creative work, when you thought that the medical field is so science-based and it's all focused on all these interventions to help patients recover, but it's about being creative in terms of how you merge the different things in your life. And I think for me, when you do that as an artist, that makes you even more special. It gives you a very unique perspective where you could offer something to the world that's totally different, and also it's something that only you can give.
Yeah, that's so true.
Well, and I think to anyone listening, it's like, don't let that just be Chris's example. Like you could be a lawyer, or something else that seems even less related to art than, because I mean, first of all, nursing, that doesn't sound related to art at all, except until you just explained it, and then it makes all the sense in the world. And it's like, we all have to work jobs, unless you got really rich parents, all of us are going to have to work a day job before we become successful artists. And it's like, I think, don't let that example just stay within Chris's example. I think for everyone, whatever you're doing with your life, you're learning about the human experience, and you're like interacting with other people, and it becomes your art,
Yeah. I also had a question before we move too far away. You said something interesting, and I think a lot of like young artists struggle with this. And you said, I think you said something like you didn't feel like your art was at the point where you were ready to like show it. So how did you find that point? Like, I know a lot of people are maybe like scared to put their art out there because they don't feel like it's ready. When would you say like you knew when you were ready, and like what would you recommend to like younger artists who want to share their work but they're not sure if they're ready?
Yeah, it's always part of, I think, of a creative journey of an artist to have that self-doubt, and at the same time to not to be sure about the work that you do. Many years ago, I even struggled to call myself an artist because I felt like to be the artist, an artist, you have to be there showing your work in the gallery, but
Mhm.
it's not necessarily true. For me, I was self-taught for around 3 years, and I felt like I wasn't ready at that time because, my basis was I try and look at the work that I have seen that people are selling and the other artists are selling. And I felt like there's a certain quality that I need to achieve in order to offer same standard. So I'm the kind of person who really looks at a certain standard in terms of this is the work that I think is um, worthy to be exhibited. But
Mm.
at the same time, it didn't mean that I wasn't sharing my work. I was actually sharing my work through Facebook. I was sharing my work to my friends, to the people that I know.
Mm.
Um, but to get past into that, showing your work to other to the community and or to other groups of people, I mean, I started very slowly. I remember joining the group exhibition that the art school was doing. So it's a very safe way of putting your work out there without having that much pressure. So I
Mhm.
sent one work, and I remember it was a painting of a caravan with a beautiful day with a bit of flowers in the field, and it sold. And that was the first painting I sold to someone I didn't know, and
Cool.
that was such a joy. And and
Mhm.
I think I was just building from that. So it's mainly being also understanding the value of your work, but at the same time knowing that there's so much to improve in your work, but also having the confidence that it is a work of from your creativity, and you grow from there. But at the same time, you slowly expose these works to different people. So start with your friends, people that you know. They will provide nice feedback, but at the same time, also I think it's also important as an artist to understand in terms of what is your goal with your art. What
Mm.
is the intention of doing your art. As for me, I always knew that creating my art was about giving the same feeling of joy that I feel when I look at an artwork. And it
Mm.
was always that. And I had that intention that when I create this artwork, I wanted to evoke the same emotion. I wanted to give the same experience. And so you never stop working and, making things better for that, making better. And going back into what I said, as I struggled calling myself as an artist initially,
Mhm.
what I wanted to share to anyone who wanted to be an artist or who are at the early stage in their career, remember that becoming an artist, being an artist is about using your creativity. You are an artist because you are creating art.
Mm.
Um, we have different levels, probably we have different achievements, but still it doesn't invalidate you as an individual, as a creative person, to
Mm.
call yourself an artist. And just keep growing, really. um,
Mhm.
keep learning and keep pushing your technique. I'm still pushing my technique at this stage. Sometimes I feel like, have you arrived at a certain kind of level wherein you'll be very comfortable, and maybe I could do that one as well. Like, you get a series, it becomes very popular, people are buying them, you're selling a lot of that from a certain series, but then I knew that I don't stop at the you just keep pushing, and it makes it even more exciting that your journey
Mhm.
becomes a journey of continuous learning, and it makes it even more fun. And for me, as a creative person, as an artist, the journey is the reward.
Mm. Yeah, that's so
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, that's really good. That's some good advice there. And I like how what you said about like you're still like challenging yourself and pushing yourself, and you're, even though your work is maybe selling and it's a popular series or whatever, but you're still like pushing yourself. You feel like you didn't arrive there, and that journey is what you said. You know, that's the beautiful part about this whole art, you know, art life, you know. And for me too, I thought I need to have a perfect style. I need to have this. People need to look at my work and say, okay, I can tell that that's his style, you know, that kind of mindset. And then I realized, do I really want to end up in a particular style? And then is that it? How far can I push that style? You know, and it's like, I feel like it almost limits you in a way. But if you just remind yourself that, hey, I'm still learning, I'm still, you know, at this humble stage where you're like, you know, I'm not there yet. I'm confident in my work, but I know that I still want to grow, you know, and challenge myself, because there's so much to create and so much things to try, so many materials, and it's endless. And I like how you share that, you know, you have that, you know, that in you, where you keep challenging yourself and exploring, you know. And I hope the audience listening can hear that, you know, and be inspired by that, because I think that's a beautiful thing. So like, I wanted to ask you before I forgot, you were mentioning about your art gallery, and is this art gallery, are you talking about just your work, or you're representing other artists? And what made you want to open how did you open your art gallery?
So
That's interesting.
you know, in terms of my journey to opening the gallery, it's something that I always knew I wanted to do. So that was many years ago, but it was this kind of almost impossible big dream. And but I knew that it's probably something I'm gonna do in around maybe 10 years, 15 years. So it was always there. I always wanted it, mainly because I have seen some really successful artists and they have their own gallery, and I thought it was very cool. But then I always, as as participated in a lot of art fairs and art shows, there are some art fairs that only accept gallery applications. So for me, that was kind of like a limiting factor for me. Like, I really wanted to take part of those things, of those events, and show my work to a different audience. But then it was limiting. So again, that was another reason to start a gallery, because I thought, if I have my gallery, that means I could do this other art fairs. At the same time, over the last few years, I've been getting a lot of requests from potential collectors who wanted to see the actual work before they purchase, which I can only understand. If you're purchasing an expensive artwork, you do want to see the real thing. And so it was a little bit awkward to kind of bring them to my 2-bedroom apartment at the time. And I felt like, I think this is not the way to go. Because for many years, I just normally just paint in my spare room. And now I have a studio with my gallery. And so that's how it all started. And eventually, as the revenue came in, and I thought, I think I'm ready to take the risk, because the commercial properties here in Sydney are pretty expensive. And so it's a big decision to make, but I felt like the revenue was sufficient to make it sustainable. And so I opened a gallery with the intention to showcase primarily my work. So I opened it in the middle of pandemic, and
wow.
I think the blessing was, I could trade online, and I have international clients, and that really helped a lot, especially during the lockdown. And so it's primarily my work. And now my wife is also a nurse and also an artist. So
What?
she has pursued her creative interest too. And so she started participating in art fairs last year. And so now we exhibit together.
Oh man, we should have had her join us too.
Yeah, maybe next time I'll get her to.
Oh, we didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And so it was just a crazy idea initially, because when I was doing fairs, we always travel together and do the art fairs. And then I said to her, you know what? You're with me anyway all the time, and I do art fairs. Why don't we just exhibit together and show your art too? And that means it'll be more fun. And so and we did it last year. And now, so
Wow.
my gallery also displays her work. And so we kind of rotate the one. And as I participated in gallery only um, application art fairs, just started representing one artist from New Zealand who I've exhibited with for many years. And so we're going to Melbourne next year for the Affordable Art Fair, and I'm representing myself, my wife, and also my brother is also an artist and based in
Wow.
Auckland, New Zealand.
That's
That's
so
crazy.
cool.
It's like
So
a
okay,
family gallery.
so you said affordable art fair. That's crazy because um before before I even got into like doing art, focusing on art, I was looking on Craigslist, looking for jobs after high school, trying to find some creative work. And I saw this affordable art fair coming to Seattle, and they go from city to city, right? They move
Mm.
around. And so they were coming from New York. It's a huge thing. I mean, this thing is like a huge warehouse with tons of artists all over the world, and you are able to purchase the artwork, and it's fine art, but you're able to purchase it between like $2 to $50,000 between there, and
Yeah.
that's affordable art, and so like and I saw that ad on Craigslist, and I was like, okay, I gotta apply for this to volunteer. It's volunteer work for 2 weeks. I just help, like get the crates out and kind of help the artists hang their work. And I volunteered there helping the, at little booths, little stations. And I remember that's how I took some business cards and met some artists and started there, just by volunteering and trying to get involved in art somehow, and it's interesting how you mentioned that, because that reminded me of that past,
Of my experience.
history. So and it seems like that affordable art fair, it's all over the world, right? And
Yes.
how did you get into that? How did you become a part of that?
Yeah, so I only started participating with Affordable Art Fair last this year. They opened a Sydney edition, and it's their first Sydney edition um, this year. And so I applied as a gallery, and they wanted for Australia. They have different criteria for every country, but for the Sydney edition, they needed 3 artists and to be part of the show of the gallery. And so I thought, so it's gonna be me, my wife, and I thought my brother's an artist, so I'll represent him too. So it's the 3 of us. And it's
That's
amazing
awesome.
how it
That's
was Kris.
awesome. Make it a
It was
family.
Yeah, so it was a Kris Ancog gallery, and the list of artists were just all Ancog. And everyone's like, oh, this is very interesting. You've got your artists lined up, and they're all has the same surname. But that was always been my dream as well. To it's about sharing, and it's about supporting other artists, and what a great way to support the people that you value and treasure first. The value your family and your loved ones. And so mainly it was only an application, and then they let you know if you get accepted, and then yeah, you pay them with the fees and everything, because there's for this particular art fair, the fees probably a bit more expensive compared to other art fairs that I've done, mainly because the size of the stand is a lot bigger, and because mainly you're representing at least 3 artists. You could represent more, and so that's
Mhm.
totally understandable. But from our experience, that was actually one of the best shows we've done. It was wonderful to be able to connect with a lot of collectors, to meet the other galleries as well and form friendship. And yeah, it's such a wonderful thing. With art fairs, it's the reason why I do a lot of art fairs these days. Normally, so far this year we've already done around, I think we've already done around 4 art fairs over the last 3 months.
Wow.
It's crazy thing because the Sydney one, it's happened to be the same date as the New Zealand Art Show, and so my wife was the one who was representing us in our gallery in Sydney, and I had to fly after we set up. I had to fly to New Zealand to do the New Zealand art show, which is mainly it's our artist represented. So I have to be there because I'm the artist to bring my work. And we were doing shows in different
Wow.
countries at the same
Wow.
day. It
So
was a lot of
Kriss,
work, and it was fun.
That's cool.
I want to bring it back to something you said earlier. You started this all by saying that art is about creating meaningful connections. And
Mm.
it sounds like you're doing that with these art fairs. So can you give us an example of some of the connections that you've made just in how art made that possible?
Yeah, so definitely all levels of. So I met you when you go to an art fair, you meet a lot of people with different background, different ages, and different life experiences. And so the first group that I normally meet are the collectors who are really interested in your work. And a lot of you hear the feedback straight away. When you go to art fairs, it's wonderful because even before you start talking with them, you can see their facial expression, immediate feedback in terms of how they like your work or whether they're interested about your work. And then you start chatting with them, and a lot of them say, oh, when I look at your work, I feel that sense of serenity. I feel that peace. It's very calming. And I think it's mainly because, especially particularly in the part where there's a lot of blending in my artwork. And if it's a big painting, it's amazing how the scale can actually give you a different experience. So that in itself, the first-hand experience of looking at the actual work compared to seeing things online, which is not necessarily bad, but nothing replaces seeing the real thing.
That's
And
true.
then I also meet a lot of art students or people who wanted to be an artist or wanted to pursue a creative career. And I always have a chat with them, and they always say, so how did you start it? Similar question in terms of how did you get in here? And it's and I said it's a long story, but it's about having a goal in terms of where you want it to be, and look at what do you need to do to get there. And for me, even doing my very first art fair took me 3 years to get there, because every year I asked myself, and this was in New Zealand, it took me 3 years to do my very first art fair, mainly because, every year I ask myself, am I ready? Do I have enough body of work to show? Am I ready as well to receive feedback? Because that's one of the scary things. Whether you like it or not, when you go to an art fair, there will be feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although in general, the audience, people are pretty nice, but you can't help it. There might be people who would say not so good things, and it's important to understand that you can have different types of feedback, and are you ready to receive that one? And if you're ready and you have the confidence to embrace all of that as a package deal, then by all means do the art fairs. And and then with the art fairs as well, that's when I got represented by a big gallery in Sydney. I invited them to come to the art fair and said, this would be a perfect time for you to see the body of work that I'm showing. And so that was a perfect way to show the real portfolio, not just a brochure or a PDF file of all my artworks, but the real artwork, and for them to be able to see how the audience would also respond to my work. And I think that was a wonderful way to show them of what I can do and what I bring to their gallery. And that actually was a very positive experience for me. And then as an art, when you do art fairs, it's not just collectors, it's not just the audience who would come that you'll be able to connect with. You'll be able to connect with the organizers and other artists. You develop friendship over the years, especially when you do art fairs. All these editions every few months or every year, you get to see each other, you get to share all your stories, you get to encourage each other, and you get to because artists are the ones who totally understand what it feels to be an artist bringing your work during the fair. And so because you understand each other's journey, it's so much easier to connect. You may not be able to connect with everyone, but there will be one or two people who has the same passion and joy, the same kind of interest, the same, I know, you just have the vibe. You just have that certain kind of vibe, and you can connect with these people and they become your friends. And then you
Mhm.
connect further through the social media, and you see each other again the next year when you do the art fairs, and it's a wonderful thing. I think that's a really fun part as well of the art fair, seeing each other, and you see them grow too. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, you're bringing another work, and then you have a chat about the new process that you're doing. And for
Mhm.
me, that's art community should be like that.
Hmm.
Being able to encourage one another. We don't see each other as a competition, but rather we see each other as individuals, special individuals who bring
Mhm.
beauty and who bring joy to this world. And that we're not against each other. We're actually working to make this world a better place. And the more
Yes,
artists that we create, then the better it will
that's
be.
really cool.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. I like how you said that we're not here to compete with each other. We're here to, because oftentimes I notice this because from my experiences, sometimes you want to compare your work and you want to compare,
Mm.
oh man, like you tend to try to go that route, but then you're like, no, like you have to learn how to stop yourself and look at it in a positive way, in a way where you can learn something, by
And
like
also like realizing that each artist is so different,
yeah, they have
like,
their own journey.
yeah, everyone's journey is different, I think.
Yeah, and I like how it's important to have groups of just even artists in your space, because that's how the artists used to hang out with each other in person, and used to paint sometimes in huge studios together,
Mm.
and they used to get together and do that back in the day,
Man, that'd be so
and
fun.
Yeah.
you get so much inspiration from that. I think each artist, you push each other in a positive way,
Mhm.
to grow
Yeah.
and step out, and I think that's such a fun thing. So I know what you mean by that, connecting with other artists.
And
um,
Yeah.
oh,
I
continue.
was gonna ask you, so
Yeah.
talking about social media, you started on Facebook first or Instagram, or how did that grow? Because you have a big following too on Instagram. And how did you grow it? When did you start? And like, which platforms are you on? And are you staying consistent? How's that going for you?
Mhm. So for me, Instagram was actually one of those apps that I really love using. And when I was painting, I was also doing, when I started painting, I was also doing photography. So I'll be taking photos of sunsets regularly. So my Instagram was a photography, more of like a photography Instagram many years ago. But by the time I moved to Australia, I've realized that when I was doing these art fairs, I've realized that these really amazing artists are very good at using Instagram to share their story and to share their work. And I thought, you know, Instagram is really powerful then. And so that's when I started really looking at understanding how the app works. And that's where that's this is so Instagram has been my preferred app, social media account where I share my work. And yes, consistency is really a big thing. In 2020, I only had over 1,000 followers. And
Wow, you
Wow.
grew fast.
and that's when I thought, you know what, this is going to be a nice goal for me to do. I will yeah, I mean, it's not so much about, yes, it's true that, we have a goal to have a bigger following, but at the same time, I had to really look deeply inside and really ask myself, what is the purpose of doing this one? And I always have to go back. Instagram for me is about connecting with people. It's about showing my work, not just show off, but to show my work, because you never know, someone might be interested and might be inspired about what you're doing. And so, yeah, it was consistency. And so I decided to post every day, pretty much. And it got to the point I even post twice a day. And it's about
Wow.
consistency and
That's a
understanding.
lot.
It's a lot. Like, if you look at my, if you look at my posts over the last 2 years, I'm there every single day. Like,
Mhm.
and I with Instagram, how what you posted a few months ago, most of the time they won't be seen much
Yeah.
anymore. And so I do reshare them, but share a different perspective about that particular work. So that's
That's
how I
good.
grew
That's a good
my
point right there.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's
So that's how I
helpful.
share my, yeah, so that's how I share my work. And but I like, this time I'm a full-time artist now. I create content, fresh content, pretty much almost every day, mainly because,
Mhm.
it's what I do. So I just record, the things that I'm doing, and at the
Yeah.
same time, just take short videos or take a photo. I always have photos of my work anyway, because each week I will be finishing a few paintings every week, because I order my canvas by hundreds now. So like, I have
Wow.
100 canvas in my storage, and I'll just be painting. And because I do a lot of layers, um I I'll be doing multiple works, and so each week I'll have some paintings that will be finished, and I'll have some photos that I share. And so I always share the process. Going back into social media, Instagram has been a very powerful um a social media account, because it was actually through Instagram that I got represented by the big gallery in Sydney. um,
Cool.
which because they've seen my work, your Instagram could be the portfolio, where they could see how people respond to your work. And at the same
Mhm.
time, they see your personality as an artist. They
Yeah.
will see how, what are your thoughts, what are your views about what's going on, and about your own practice as well. And it's a great way to see to see a lot of different aspects of you as an artist. And
Mhm.
and going back again in terms of what is my purpose of Instagram now, it's really about bringing inspiration to other artists, because a lot of artists actually follow my account, and they said, I'm really inspired by the work that you do. And it brings into the question of whether should I show my technique. That's
Yeah.
that has been something that a lot of people have said to me, oh, don't share too much, because they'll copy your work. And aren't you scared? But my accountant even asked me one time while we were chatting about my art journey, and said, oh, aren't you scared that some other artists will just copy your work, and that means you lose the clients? And
Ah.
my answer to that is, you know what, no one can copy your heart and soul. No one can
Mhm.
copy your unique creativity. They can probably do something similar, but if someone really has that intention to copy exactly and to compete with you, and whatever those not so positive intention, they will not find the joy that you would have if you actually do the work um, with pure intention. And
It's
so
That's
yeah.
interesting because Felix and I were actually just talking about the same conversation the other day in the car. And
Mhm.
and like we had that thought too, like because Felix has been sharing for a while like his techniques, and like people learn from him. And actually someone like messaged him one time and they're like, hey, this, it's funny because it was like some big top government person in like Thailand. He like copied one of Felix's like
Oh, like
paintings
an actual
and
work.
like sold it as like an NFT or something. And people were like,
Right.
Felix, aren't you upset that he did this, blah blah blah. And Felix is like, actually, like for me it doesn't matter, because it's like he copied it but he did it in his own style. It's still not the same as if Felix were to paint it. Even if someone knows your technique, they still are not you. And
Yeah,
so like, and that's
totally.
what makes you unique, and that's what makes your work worth what it's worth. It's because it's you that's doing it, not because someone else took your technique and copied it. So that's the way that we kind of look at it. And I think you can still value your art at a high price, um, even if your technique is known.
Mhm.
Mm, definitely. And it's about, for me, it's about, for me, it's about the emotion that I bring into the painting. It's about the message and the, yeah, everything that I pour my heart and soul into each piece that I create.
And
And
your
I
experience.
yeah, and that's something
Mhm.
that that really makes the artwork very special.
Mhm.
um and when I look at sharing my technique, it's all about, if I could inspire one more artist who would pursue art, or they might have tried it before and they see your work and they said, I'm going to try doing that one again, then for me that's a win. For me,
Mhm.
that's something that that's one more person who can be creative and who will bring another beauty into this world. So isn't that a wonderful
Exactly.
thing?
Yeah, that's a great way
One
to see.
thing I noticed between both of you guys that I want to point out is that I noticed that both of you guys are like, you are not afraid to put in the hard work and hustle. And I think that like your story is so inspiring because it's like you came from a small country, you moved to another country, then you moved to another country, you started with nursing, and then you changed to painting like already in the middle of your life or like career, you know, and then you had this dream to open a gallery and you did it, you know, like how inspiring is that? And I think it just shows that there's no limit for what you can accomplish if you're passionate about what you're doing, and if you just go for it. And so, and also if you're not afraid of doing hard work, because what you have accomplished, it doesn't come from just sitting around and wishing it would happen. It happened because you went out there to art fairs, you tried things, you met people, you put in the work that a lot of people are not willing to do. And that's something I was talking to Felix about today, is like, man, if you want something that most people don't have, you have to do what most people aren't willing to do. And that's hard because most of the things that we want in life, it requires hard work. And so being consistent, even on social media, that's hard. A lot of people can't do that. And so you guys are doing really good. And I just think you guys are amazing examples of like hard work.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, in terms of hard work, that's the thing, because not everything is seen. You know, I may post in social media a lot of times, almost pretty much every day, but also, especially in the last many years before I've even opened my gallery, no one have seen, except those my family and my wife, that no one have seen the struggles that came with doing this time.
Mhm.
You know, I remember, when I remember the stress of, you know, going to an art fair and my artworks didn't arrive. And so the saving grace was I did bring some artworks with me. When I flew to that, with my, when I went to the venue, I did bring some, like maybe 5 paintings with me, and those were the paintings that I was able to hang on my wall. But the stress that comes with it, it's just it's not something that you easily that you don't that a lot of people would know. And I remember, especially before the art fairs, that like I would sleep for a few hours because there was still like, this last minute thing that I needed to do. And especially when I was still nursing, like the day before the art fair, I'd still be nursing, doing my 8-hour shift. And by the time I get home, then I'll be packing the paintings and bring them to the venue the next day. No, that's not something that you easily see. That it's such a vulnerable thing, hey, that moment when you try. And I still remember that moment, many years ago, when I stand in front, when I go to an art shop, and I would literally choose the colors that I need because I can't afford to pay all the colors that I wanted. And mainly because my art wasn't I wasn't selling a lot of paintings that time. And so the art wasn't really, I didn't have that revenue to pay for all the materials. And then you prioritize, just like what we do in nursing. You prioritize what's the most important thing. And to be, to come from that, to go through that journey, I look back and I thought, it's a lot of hard work. But at the same time, with the hard work, it's always going back into what is your purpose of doing all these things. For me, that's the foundation of my art practice. It's really about understanding why you're doing this in the first place. Because if you're just in it for money, I don't think it will sustain you for a long time. If you're just in it for fame, I don't think you would ever have joy. If it is for other things, it's really about knowing why you're doing this thing. And for me, it's about, again, going back, creating meaningful connection. Art is a wonderful thing that I do in myself. It's about not just connecting with other people, but also connecting to yourself. understanding yourself as a person. What are your desires? What are your passions? Because those things really flow into the work that you do, into the paintings that you create. And to be reminded of that each day, it really encourages me to do the hard work, because that hard work is the one that would, it's for me, it's the execution that really creates results. You know, I could always think about, oh, I wanted to do this one, I wanted to do this, try a little bit, but when you execute your plan, your strategy to reach your goal, that's what brings that, that's what gives you results. um,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's so true. Hard work is definitely an important element in order to succeed in this, in whatever industry, whatever craft, whatever profession that you're doing.
Yeah, and I like the way that you said, like, yes, hard work, but also that hard work comes because of your passion and because of why you're in it in the first place. And so it makes it not as hard. Yes, it's still hard, but at least it's something you're enjoying
Yeah,
and
it
you're
becomes an exciting
excited
journey.
about. Yeah. um I think it'd be good to talk. Like, I noticed, well, Sebastian, you can ask a question, but I think it would be good to also, before like the episode ends, like to talk a little bit more about your like your art and your process. Because
Yeah,
we haven't really talked about your
yeah,
style much. I
that's right.
noticed, but Sebastian, go ahead first.
Well, that's
Yeah,
actually what I was gonna get into. You read my
Okay,
mind.
cool.
yeah,
So when I was looking at your art, I noticed that I don't mean this at all to be reductive. I actually think it's what makes it so interesting is that like do you remember back in the early days, like the Windows music visualizer, you know, like you'd put a song on
yeah,
and there were all the different
yes.
colors and it would
Oh
spiral
Right.
yeah.
around.
Yeah.
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 And I think that there was something kind of like hypnotic about that. And it was a very rudimentary thing. But like when you were talking about how your work is an emotional landscape, it kind of got me to think about that. It's almost like if you were to hook up people to a sophisticated machine, would we see something like your paintings, you know? And so
That's
that got me to
cool.
wonder, are you like a synesthetic person? Like, do you see different emotions and different colors and things like that in your head?
Um, yeah, it's that's a very interesting thing, because I always think about art and colors all the time. Even when I was still a child, when I see some shades, I always interpret them. Like I see, say for example, I see a wall with a certain color, and I think it's when my brain tells me, oh, that looks interesting, that looks beautiful, then my brain goes into interpreting that and said, oh, what makes it beautiful? And
Mm,
so it's constantly in my head, and I think it's just the way how my brain works over the years. When I think about a painting that I wanted to create, I think about what, if I wanted to bring something beautiful into the canvas, what are those beautiful things I'd like to include? And I remember those things, I see things, and I remember from memories as well, those really beautiful colors that kind of made me attracted in those colors, in a very special way. And so I do see those things, yeah, seeing, not literally seeing, but it's just in my head. And so and also when I see other artworks as well, and I see the colors, and it's like, oh, why am I attracted to this particular artwork? Like, I'm a big fan of Turner's work. It really shows in my work as well, in terms of, how to handle the light and things like that, and how to paint the light. And everything becomes, all those things are actually at work when I'm creating a painting. And I do multiple layers. I use mainly use oil, but in some other works as well, I use acrylic as underpainting, and I build multiple layers of oils on top, because you know it's true for me. It's I wanted to create a certain degree of translucence, and at the same time, while I do the layers, I feel like, it brings that magical aspect. It brings that magical feel. And it also goes back into that, those paintings that I really enjoyed looking at in the museums, in the galleries, in the big galleries. Those layered colors just gives me this, wonderful experience, and it makes me happy, and it
Mhm.
brings me that sense of serenity as well. and
Yeah.
um and so, yeah, I incorporate all those things. um with my particular work, blending is also one part, because blending is one of those features that, or one part of my painting that a lot of people would say, oh yeah, that blending is amazing. And I take hours blending these colors. And I think over the years, I learned how to do the blending in a way that would help me achieve the vision that I have for the painting. And that's why I use mainly oils in the final few layers, because it's so much easier to blend than acrylics. I could do some blending on acrylics, but the oils just give me this result that I wanted to achieve, without and I take time. Therefore, the paint doesn't dry straight away.
Mhm.
And the downside is that you have to wait for it to dry before you add another layer. And that's the reason
Mhm.
why I do multiple works in a day. I'll be probably in my studio right now, probably around 40 works in progress.
Wow.
Wow, that's cool.
Wow.
And
Woo.
really quick, so
And
there's this doesn't relate to anything, but I've been meaning to ask the whole time. How, I don't know if you mentioned, how old were you when you first started painting? Because you said you'd
yeah,
already
I was
started doing nursing.
yeah, I was 22 when I moved to New Zealand, and so I was 23 when I started painting. And I remember, how I started doing painting, because I wasn't ready to invest in it. And I thought, I don't want to spend a art material straight away, because I'm not even sure if this is what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
Really, I wanted to pursue. I was a little bit cautious, I think. And so I went to this I don't know if you have it in the US, but in New Zealand we had this, we call them $2 shop, where everything they sell is pretty much $2. And so I went there, bought this really cheap brush and very cheap set of paint, and started playing with them. And I thought, this is really cool. This is what I want to do. And so it progressed from there.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so and again, this is something that I'd like to encourage to anyone who wanted to pursue art. You don't have to spend a lot at
Mhm.
first. If you're not
I
even sure,
agree.
use whatever you can afford, use whatever thing you have, and
I
play with
agree
it, and
so
then you
much.
progress.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I would get questions sometimes, either on Facebook or Instagram, people saying, "Oh man, I wish I had your materials. It looks so good." I live, in a different country. We can't afford these kind of materials, and kind of like questions like that. And I get so sad seeing those questions. Like, I mean, people saying these things because they really believe that, like, because of high quality materials, if they don't have that, they're not going to create something beautiful. And I always try to tell them, hey, I started this, and I'm sure you have, and many other artists, with just very basic tools, pencil and a piece of paper.
I
That's how I
literally
started.
believe that this right here, you could become a master artist with just this.
Just a
Like,
Yeah.
pen.
I
Yeah.
don't like, and I haven't focused on visual art, but like with music, it was literally like 5 years before I bought an even remotely nice guitar. Like, I learned on just something that worked. As long as it
Mhm.
worked, that's all that matters. And like, I've seen people I follow a few artists on TikTok who make brilliant art with just ballpoint. And
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
it's, and the skills translate. I mean, the same way that your medical skills, like, this is one thing that I'm really big on these days. I think I talked about it in the last podcast, but I think that like skills are universal. And
Mm,
I think that people don't realize that. They
Mhm.
think because our education is divided into different subjects, obviously there's different subjects, but like, there are certain concepts that are just universal. Like, if you go out and be a cook for 10 years and you develop confidence in your abilities, you develop, social skills, whatever, you develop the ability to work fast, things like
mm,
that, that's going to translate to anything else you do. And I don't think people appreciate that enough, that like, so that's why I
yeah.
say, like, you can learn with a ballpoint pen. And then by the time you finally do pick up some nice acrylic or oil paints, you'll be so much faster at learning than the person who,
Yeah,
never.
totally agree. Like, the things that I've learned in nursing, are, the skills that I developed over the years, have been very helpful in terms of running
Mm.
the art business.
Yeah.
Nursing has
And
taught me to do a
23 is
lot of.
late, and 23 is late, which I think is awesome, because you
Yeah.
went you went and
Mhm.
made your dreams happen anyway. I think
I
Yeah,
so
know.
many people think
I
they
have
have to
to be,
start when they're
yeah.
10 years old and be a success by the time they're 25,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we all
ridiculous.
we all have our own journey. And for me, I was a nurse. So it wasn't practical at the time to be doing a lot of paintings and doing shows because I was in the hospital looking after patients. And but there's always a way to transition if it's really something you wanted to do. And
Yeah.
I remember I was 25, and and a lot of people probably have experienced this, when you just wanted to pursue one thing with all your heart and soul. And for me at that time, I thought I really wanted to be an artist full time, but I knew I wasn't ready, for a lot of reasons. And that was yeah, I was thinking, should I do this one or should I, but I remembered, I asked myself, why do I have to choose just one? I can be an artist and be a nurse at the same time. And so I made a decision that, sometimes life can give you, may seem like might can give you, well, put you in a situation wherein you feel like you have to make a decision and choose between two things. But sometimes you can choose both, maybe it would be different if you were to pursue one with all your heart and with all your soul and dedicate your
Yeah.
life into it. But it's okay to pursue two things. And
Mm-hmm.
then you just you know for me, I've made a mantra as well that I'm going to customize my life, which means that I'm in charge of what I wanted to do. I don't have to do what other people are doing. I do what is based on my situation, based on what I have, and based on my the resources that I have. Then I make the best decisions I have for my life. And for me at that time, it wasn't wise for me to just go full time. I knew that I doing nursing and doing art was the most practical thing that I can do in my life. But in saying the one nursing, I really love nursing as well, equally as art, especially during that time that I was actually doing my master's degree in nursing that time. Because
Wow.
I was this nurse. I wasn't just the nurse to just show up to do my work, I was a nurse who really think about what's the best thing I could offer to my patient. And that means investing into my education as well, because the more I know about how therapies work and how to manage very complex clinical situations, then I can offer something better for my client, for my patients. And
Right.
working in intensive care that time, it did, my studies really helped me a lot to have that critical thinking, that ability to make quick decisions, especially if your patient is actually deteriorating. So those are the situations wherein, I needed to improve myself. And I use the same approach in terms of how I do my art. I find ways to improve, I find ways to learn. And that means, if that means doing some courses to get to know more about how to run an art business, how to run a gallery, because I didn't have anyone who would be guiding me to say, this is how you run a gallery. I pretty much I want to do a gallery and I'll learn as I go.
Well, maybe you should make a course teaching people how to open their own galleries.
Maybe in the
Yeah.
future. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so encouraging. What you're sharing your story is that it just shows that you're just willing and you're passionate and you're willing to do the hard work. You're not afraid of it. You're not afraid to jump in, and we've had many artists that are successful because of that thing, that they're willing to do the work, and they're passionate. They know that they love this thing, and they're willing to do the work. They're not afraid, and you're jumping in, not even if you don't know everything 100%, you jump in and then you just learn from there. You jump in and grow, and then from there, like you were saying, maybe you have to take courses. And even like Andrea, she before she just recently opened an art business course, and she worked on it for years. And before even she opened her business, like teaching people about art business, she would take courses, similar. It's not specifically on art business, but it's about business, online business, and I've seen that she paid thousands of dollars investing, not knowing if she's going to get that return. And she was passionate about business, and over time, it paid off. It paid off so
Yeah,
much
definitely.
more, is worth it, and so jumping in and doing something, even if it's, you feel like maybe it's, like sometimes, do you feel like that sometimes when you're like doing something else, either editing or you have to run errands or something, and you feel like you're wasting time because you're not in the studio? You feel like you're missing out. You're not
Oh, I
creating.
see. Yeah, a lot of times I do feel like that. Like, I'm doing my books, my accounting books, and I should be painting this time. And why am I reconciling all these entries and and
Yeah.
doing all these scanning all these
Felix gets
receipts and
so
flows?
frustrated.
But that's the thing, because you go into for me, when I decided to become an artist, it's like marriage for me. It's like marriage. You embrace it with all your heart, including the unsexy, including the difficult, including the uncomfortable, including those not so nice things about it. And that's what makes it beautiful. And at the same time, it helps you have that awareness that I must really love this one, because if I'm willing to embrace all these not so nice things, then I must really love doing this one. And for me, it's a test of how passionate you are
Yeah.
about what you're doing. And in terms of the, becoming an artist, I always knew that it's going to be difficult. I knew that there will be some challenges to even sell to the extent that you have enough revenue to pay yourself, to make it as a source of income.
Mhm.
There will be some challenges, but then at the other side, I love challenges too. I love challenges in a way that I'm probably, I don't know, I've talked to a lot of my classmates before when I was still a student. I was still in uni, and then I would say to them, I love exams. It's like, oh, that's so weird. We hate exams. We hate tests. And I said, I love it mainly because I I studied, but and at the same time I wanted to know how much I know. And I love numbers. Like, how much can I get a perfect score?
Ah, you were
Oh,
the nerd, the
or
nerd
maybe
in
I'm
the
just
class.
or maybe I'm just this type A personality person who would just say, okay, let's do this and let's measure this one. But overall, it's really, for me, it's about, for me, attitude is altitude. Attitude
Mhm.
is the one that elevates you. If you have the right attitude in terms of and you use the one in whatever you do, the right attitude can really elevate you and get you to where you wanted to be.
Nice. Well, on
That's
Yeah.
that
that's
note, you guys, we are getting to the end, and I wanted to make sure that we squeeze in a question from your audience, Felix.
That was a perfect way to end, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was. I was feeling it. That's why I went in. So this is a good one because this is something that you've mentioned before, and I think this person says, "How do you quote unquote paint what you feel? I can't seem to figure it out." And this is Gigi asking that.
Yeah, that's really a great question. Now, I think in terms of, I think the easiest, well, not the easiest way, but the easier way of doing it is, first and foremost, looking back into your own experience when you saw a painting and you were moved by that painting. Remember what was in that painting that gave you that experience. So, say for example, I went to this museum. I went to this museum in New Zealand, and there was this traveling exhibition from Europe. And I was standing in front of this large painting of a German artist. It was a painting of a forest, and I remember standing in front of it, and I felt like I was transported into a big forest. And what I remember was the parts of the painting that really made me, for me, it gave me that kind of experience, was mainly, it's the colors, it's the textures and the way how the details were created. And so I do exactly the same thing when I do my paintings. If I wanted a painting to feel, to if I wanted a certain emotion to be painted into the canvas, you bring that, because it's such an abstract concept. It's, how do you paint emotion? Such a great question. I'm still trying to answer that one too. But you bring those aspects that gives you the experience. And for me, whether it is the light in a sunset that gives you that peace, whether it is this beautiful greenery that gives you a sense of abundance, whether it is this red color that reminds you of your passions and your dreams, you use the one and make the composition, paint those things so that it gives the same experience to hopefully to whoever views your painting. That's been my way of painting emotions. And I'm still trying to learn other ways, but for me, as far as I can remember, that's the way I do it.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's so important to um you know, like not try to like put so much pressure on yourself as a creator. You know, I feel like that's how you know, like kids are so simple. They don't worry. I was telling Andrea today that we're driving, you know, it's crazy how you like you're taken care of by your parents, and you're growing up as a kid, and you're just playing, and you're you know, everything's, you know, taken care of, and you're not worried about like life and like thinking about all these crazy things. As you get older, you start to think about these things, and you have to, you're not, you cannot be, you know, like, you know, mooching off your parents anymore. You know, they're like, you're already an adult, you have to. And anyway, and so like as a kid, you're free though, you're free, you're not thinking too much, you know. But as you get older, we tend to overthink things, you know, and complicate things. And I think it's so important to like what you were saying, just get that emotion, whether you're feeling peace in the moment, or you're feeling happiness, that feeling, whatever it is, and represent it in your own way. There is no perfect color, or like no limit to how realistic or abstract you can take this. Just you just have to make the move to do it, because that's the only way it's going to be, you know, done, is if you actually physically do it, go to the canvas or a sketchbook, and actually put the time to do something, just put it out, translate it in your own way, you know, and be free from that. Remember like you were like as a kid, you know. And I think we oftentimes forget that, you know, because we overthink too much. And it's important to be reminded to just enjoy it, just jump in, see what happens, you know. Maybe it'll surprise you.
I honestly just think people are afraid of it turning out bad. And I think that as soon as you give yourself permission to be bad, then then it just happens. It's not that you don't have ideas. It's like everyone has ideas. You're just afraid that your idea is not going to be original or good enough.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, it's a lot of process of like letting go of those fears, letting go of those anxieties, letting go. And you know, it's only you can do that one for yourself. Unfortunately, you know, you make the decision to let go of these things and be free. And you know, to say that it's okay, you know, if you can't do it the first time, then you can do it the next time. And for me, it took me hundreds of paintings to be able to confidently paint some piece that brings that emotion. The most amazing feedback I had was when I get a collector and they would message me and say, I'm in tears right now just looking at this original work.
Wow. That's a good feeling. Dang.
And I've experienced that one as well when I was doing an art fair. And there was this lady who said to me, show me which one is your favorite work. And it's like, you know, all my works I love all my works. But I said, this particular one really just brings all the emotions that I love. And she looked at the painting and she said, and she just cried. And she said, this painting is so spiritual for me. It really moves me in a very special way. And she was in tears. And you know, what a special way. It's a sacred kind of response for me, and I really honor that one. It's a wonderful thing to be able to connect at that level. I don't need to have everyone to cry in front of my paintings, but for me, you know, when they say they feel something, or they see something different, or they see something that they couldn't easily identify, there are no words for it. You know, for me, that reminds me that I have achieved my goal of creating and connecting, creating meaningful connections with people.
That's good. And I think really that also like it becomes kind of a language, like what you guys are saying, like for example, like me and Sebastian, we grew up around Spanish. My grandma only speaks Spanish, but like we lost it as we grew up. So like now I'm trying to like relearn my Spanish and like be more fluent, but like it takes practice and it takes time to like have that fluent language like come out, you know? And I feel like it's almost like that, at least what I've experienced hearing you guys talk is like with art, like expressing that emotion freely, like it takes time and practice. It might not come out right the first time, but the more you practice, the more you're going to get fluent in that language.
That's a great analogy.
Of like sharing your emotion on the canvas. And I think actually through that process, it's very healing because you learn how to let go of trying to control things, let go of like ideas you had about yourself or how things have to be, or, you know, things like that. So I think in that way, now I understand why people say that art can be like so healing.
Yeah. And before I
Wise
forget, I'd
words.
like to mention as well, just very quickly, you know, in terms of painting emotion, I really wanted to say to anyone who are interested about that one, you cannot paint what you don't have. So it's very important to, you know, it's just the same as you cannot give what you don't have. So if you wanted to paint peace and joy, cultivate the one in your life. I think it's really difficult to paint peace and to paint love if you don't have the one in your heart. It's important to align what you have in your heart, what's in your life, into what you're doing in the canvas.
That's
For
good.
me, it's the only way for it to work. Yeah.
That's really good. Thank you for that. Hey, Kriss, that was awesome, man. That was, you did it.
Thank
You
you.
said some great, you know, what wisdom here, and
Some
also
great nuggets of
and
it.
encouragement. I think people are gonna really enjoy this one
I
because
know.
you shared a lot of valuable information here,
You got
and
me inspired.
yeah, yep.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
me
you so
too.
much for inviting me and for letting me share my story. I really enjoy this interview, and this really aligns with my goal as well, with connecting with people. The more people could hear my story, then I'm hoping that somehow it will bring inspiration in their creative journey.
It totally does. And
Yes.
so I want to say we were so happy to have you, and we're so grateful to get to know you. And we will see you online. So
Yeah.
please remind us again of your handle. It's your first name and your last name.
My last name, yes. So
Okay.
at Kris Ancog, KrisaNcog.
Okay, perfect. And thank you so much to the ColorByFeliks community for tuning in this week, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with another artist so it can inspire more people. And we are so excited to see where your art journey is going to take you, Kriss. Be sure to keep in touch, and we'd love to have you on in the future again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. You have a
Thanks,
good
Take
day.
Kriss.
care.
Really appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Take care,
Nice
Kriss.
to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.